Hi there, I'm Niall Coffey with Beatcast TV, here with Afi Jorvanen, also known as Bahamas. We're going to discuss his latest record a little bit. Thank you so much for sitting down with
My
us,
pleasure.
man. We really appreciate it, dude. So first off, before releasing Pink Strat, which is your first release, you spent a lot of time as a collaborator, come session musician, working with such acts as like Feist. How do you think that sort of work influenced you as a songwriter?
Well, I think you pick up little things, you know, here and there along the way from whoever you work with or whatever you might be doing, even if it's not necessarily musical. But, you know, her approach to songwriting and, you know, making records is one of musical economy. And I think that was definitely some common ground for us to begin with, and I think that playing with her over the years, I definitely, you know, firmly believe in that, you know, hopefully writing the best song you can and then just leaving it as exposed as possible, you know.
You mentioned the musical economy thing there. I read that in a couple of interviews with you where you were saying you're drawn to simplicity in music. Do you think you could quantify what it is about sort of simple songs that it is that attracts you to them?
Well, I think simple songs, first of all, can have a complexity to them that's, you know, almost beyond words. You know, when a lyric comes together with a melody, that in and of itself can be so powerful. And you know, I think there's countless artists who are able to do that really, really well. But I think I'm just drawn to it because that's what I'm drawn to in all the other things in my life. You know, in literature and food and everything. You know, I'd rather sort of experience something that I can know is 100% or something, you know. And there is a lot of music that's produced and arranged and with lots of different production techniques and things like that. But I tend more often than not to go back to music that's very, you know, presented very simply.
And when it comes to writing music like that, is it ever a challenge to sort of channel that simplicity and keep it as to the point maybe more than simple?
I think it's almost the opposite. It would be difficult for me not to do that. It would be difficult for me to make something that was really, really produced, you know. I think that, yeah, you just got to try and do what comes naturally to you, you know. So I'm on tour here with my acoustic guitar, and that's it, you know. And in some ways, that's sort of like a representation of, I mean, on the albums, you know, there's a band and things like that. But yeah, it really is like, it sort of all begins and ends there for me, you know.
And most of your live shows, normally it's just you, a drummer, and two people doing harmonies, right? What was the idea behind keeping it stripped back like that?
It wasn't really like a calculated thing. It was just like I played solo, and then I toured with the drummer. And that made a whole lot of sense because we could share a hotel room and, you know, I mean, a lot of it is just economic reasons. Like, it made sense for us to just play as a duo. And then I made this new record and I had done a lot of singing on it and there was all these parts and I thought, well, you know, well, what if I was going to add something to the band for this tour, you know, what would sort of represent those things? And it, you know, more than the bass guitar, more than the keyboards or another guitar player, it really seemed like the voice was, you know, the most obvious one. And so, yeah, I think that I've really enjoyed singing, you know, being one voice among many for the last little while. I mean, I've done a fair amount of solo touring, but most of it's been with the band, you know. And yeah, it's nice to feel like your voice to be part of something a little bit bigger, you know.
Would you say it's quite conducive to improvisation and to spontaneity, playing in such a small group like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know, it just sort of, if I want to extend sections or, you know, change the key or do anything really to manipulate the songs, it's much easier to do that when you're not, I don't want to say rehearsed. I mean, we definitely rehearse, you know. It's nice to know what you're doing, but it's more to the point. It's just it's nicer to have some room to play with the songs too, you know. Otherwise, it would just get boring if you just got up and did the same thing every night.
How important is that for you then, to keep things interesting and exciting and relevant for yourself, especially?
I think that's probably the most important. I think that if it wasn't interesting to me, it would probably be boring to everyone else, you know? So I hope that if I'm excited about what I'm doing, that would translate to the audience, you know? But yeah, it's not that I want to make the songs unrecognizable. I think that if you know the album, you know, and coming to the shows, you would definitely, you know, recognize the songs. But yeah, I think just leaving some room in there to inject some life into them beyond the album is good, you know?
I also read a quote from you where you were saying that you've left the lyrics on this record slightly more open-ended than before. How much do you think about the audience's interpretation of your lyrics when you're writing them? Do you let that?
Not really at all. I mean, yeah, I think that for me, that moment when I'm writing songs is really just, you know, perhaps it's tied in with my ego or whatever, like, grander ambitions I have to be an artist or a writer or something. But I mean, that really is the most selfish moment. I think most people that write will tell you that, you know, because it's just you and whatever you're making in that moment, and you haven't shared it with anyone. And I just find that for me, like, if I feel comfortable in that moment when I'm by myself, that's, you know, that's a good sign, basically. Because if it's too much of a stretch, lyrically or in any other way, I think that it would be difficult for me to sort of present that to an audience or to any sort of wider, you know, network of people.
Overall, then, also as a music fan, then, how do you feel like the artist's intent in what a song is about? How much gravity and weight do you think that has on the actual meaning of the song when a listener takes away from it?
I think probably very little. I mean, you know, as much as you can Google my name or something, it's like you can't really know someone from a distance. You know, you fill in the gaps. I mean, I do that with Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson and all the guys that I care about, you know. I don't know who they are, but they've given me so much in their songwriting to sort of really create this character. And yeah, I think that that's a natural inclination to do, you know. It's really like you just have this picture of who someone is through their songs, and yeah, I hope I'm painting something that's relatively accurate, you know.
I mean, would you say there's ever a right answer as to what a song is, or rather, is there ever a wrong answer as to what a song is about?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that, again, like, I interpret those other songwriters. I definitely, you know, interpret their songs and their lyrics and everything, but I recognize that the reality of those songs is probably something so different, you know. And oftentimes it's one moment or one little word or one little sentence that will spur a whole song. And so, yeah, it's never, I mean, in my case, like, I think it would be difficult for someone else to identify what that moment really is, you know. But I hope that I hope that there's some continuous narrative, you know, to the records and things like that people can kind of latch onto.
So Bar Chords has been described as a combination of indelible melodies and heartfelt lyrics. Would you mind telling us a little bit about the inception of that record and the recording of it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't uncommon or unlike other records, you know. I mean, it definitely wasn't unlike my first record. I just had been touring a fair bit for the first one. And, you know, just with my friend Jason, who plays the drums. And it just seemed like everyone was available to record, so it seemed like that was the time to do it, you know. And we just kind of set up and played. I mean, there's no really big secret that I can reveal as far as recording techniques or things like that. But it really just started that way, and then you know, with technology, you can put so much things on top. So we just did a whole bunch of singing afterwards, and I think we spent probably a week on it total. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Do you enjoy the recording process in general, or do you find it stressful?
Yeah, I do. I used to really get stressed out about it. You know, it's kind of, it can be like looking in the most painful circus mirror, you know, one of those curved mirrors, and sometimes what you hear back is seemingly very bent out of shape. You don't recognize yourself in it. And I think that as I got a little older and I got more comfortable with my voice and my guitar playing and everything, I think that, you know, I would hear it back and be like, well, that's actually how I sound. So if, you know, I better get used to that and, you know, be okay with that. And since I guess had that revelation, it's become really exciting, you know.
With regard to the creative process, you said, I tend to operate at a slower pace than the rest of the world. That's by intention, choosing not to interact with the world in the same way as everyone else, because it's just healthier state of mind for me to be in. Do you mind elaborating on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times, you know, those you do interviews and things like that, and they can be very in the moment, you know. And I guess I don't mean to make some grand statement about the state of affairs, you know, or technology or social media and all that stuff, but yeah, I guess I just have chosen to abstain from certain things, you know, mostly just because I don't have the patience or interest, and you know, a lot of times it can leave you sort of left out of the loop in some ways, you know, and so I think there is a bit of a struggle to, if you're going to decide not to do those things that everyone else is seemingly doing, you kind of have to accept that and be okay with it too, you know. So yeah, I mean that would really all I would mean by saying that, you know, it's just being okay with not being friended or liked or something, you know, or retweeted or whatever. So you kind of have to get okay with that. I don't know. I still like buying the newspaper, and I play a lot of guitar at home, and I just feel like if I you know, if I sort of choose to sacrifice those things to go into some other world, basically I'm very content with the things that I have now, so why change, you know? That's all it is, yeah.
If you had to pinpoint one person or thing as your muse, what would it be?
Well, I suppose it's the up and down of you know, my state of mind with regard to, you know, different relationships and things like that that I would go through, you know. That seems to time and time again sort of, you know, spur some songwriting for me. And yeah, I guess I'm just like always trying to write love songs. I know that's like cheesy, and everybody writes them, and you know, I'm not like the first person to do that at all, but I do think that's an elemental feeling, you know. Everybody knows like the first pangs of love, and they know the heartache of it and all that stuff, and there's such a wide spectrum in between of emotions, you know. So I think anytime I sort of like feel any of that stuff, if I can like steal a moment to you know, work on it, I usually get a song out of it. Yeah.
Cool. Last thing then, what's the future for Bahamas?
The future is world domination through gently acoustic music. Yeah, I don't know. I'll make another record at some point. I mean, I tour a fair bit, you know, so that's kind of been my reality the last few years, and I hope to get a chance to spend some time at home and work on some new songs, and I think I'll probably make another recording later this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear it, man. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Dude.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.